Staying with this question of what responsibility really means or doesn't mean, we can say that the general sense of the word is that it has to do with our allegiance to an underlying set of beliefs or assumptions. So our allegiance to these beliefs or assumptions simply means that we don't ever question them. So it's exactly the same as belonging to a dogmatic religion. So then, in that case, if I belong to a dogmatic religion, my responsibility is to believe the dogma and never question it, and that is explicitly stated. That's the whole point about dogma, is that it must never be questioned. That's the only way it can work. And this has been turned into a virtue. Belief is said to be a virtue. But really, this responsibility is a very queer sort of responsibility, really, since straight away we've diverged from the truth. And our so-called responsibility is now a responsibility to uphold the lie, not to mince words, just to get to the point quickly. Our responsibility is responsibility to the lie, which isn't such a strange idea. We do have we do develop a sense of allegiance or loyalty, as is well known, to any system that traps us, such as an abusive family or an abusive relationship, with the result that if we leave, instead of feeling liberated, we feel guilty at having let down the system. We've betrayed some kind of sacred trust. We've betrayed our sacred trust to the lie. Only we don't say it like that. But the awful feeling of letting the system down is very strong, and it'll very often cause us to turn around and go straight back in again to whatever it is. So we do have loyalty to the systems that trap us. The reason for that is that the systems that trap us actually give us our identity, and so we are now dependent upon the system that is trapping us and abusing us in order to be who we think we are. So our allegiance to the system is basically allegiance to ourselves, only not ourselves, our false understanding of ourselves, which we're afraid to let go of. So the other type of responsibility, the type of responsibility which actually isn't a perversion or an aberration or an inversion, is having a responsibility to the truth, not to deceive ourselves. So this is a more healthy use of the word. It's not a tricky sense of the word, since if I have a responsibility to see the truth of my situation, that isn't playing into anyone else's hands. That is a genuine act that's going to help me. I'm not turning on myself. I'm not imprisoning myself by this type of allegiance, this type of responsibility. Being responsible in this way frees me. Being responsible in the other way ensures that I stay a prisoner. And in society, the way that the word responsibility is used, it certainly really, if we were to analyse it and decode it, it certainly doesn't mean anything to do with having an allegiance to seeing the truth. It absolutely doesn't. Because a social group and the way of seeing the world that comes out of that group, it never has anything to do with the truth. It's always an agreement. And no matter what we agree shall be the case, shall be the truth. Never is. Truth doesn't arise as a result of a collusion, which is what all groups, all organizations, all institutions are. Collusions of lies, basically, even though we're not prone to thinking of them in that way. So bringing this back to mental health, you can say, what is our responsibility here? And conventional wisdom, though I don't really like using the word wisdom in here, but conventional wisdom says that responsibility is to purposefully strive to better ourselves or improve ourselves or sort ourselves out. So all of our money is on purposeful striving. And if we do enough personal striving, purposeful personal striving, everyone's going to clap us on the back, because it's evident that we're making a huge effort, that we're doing our best. And everyone will see that, and they will be happy with us for that. That's kind of how mental health settings work. Oh, you did the thing, very good, you did the thing. So our allegiance is to buying into whatever our way of thinking is about mental health, which is an entirely wrong way in that case. Purposeful striving is our default mode. It's the default mode of the robot. It reifies the self-concept. It makes the robot self seem more real. It certainly doesn't allow us to see things any more clearly, because when we're purposefully striving, our attention is narrowed so very much. We'll never see the truth at the same time as we're purposefully striving, which is odd. Purposeful striving means that we're trying to change the world. It's generally considered a good thing, as long as we're not totally evil. And so here we are trying to change the world. Isn't that great? But the weird, ironic, absurd kind of thing about this is that when we strive to change the world, we no longer know what the world is. And therefore we no longer know what we're doing. We're striving, we're straining. But we've lost sight of who we are, what the world is, what we're trying to do. All we know, when it comes down to it, is this straining, this striving. We can't know anymore, because in order to know more, we'd have to stop being in purposeful mode. We'd have to reflect, which is not a purposeful thing. Reflecting is where you take stock and let the awareness of your situation sink into you. So that's not me outputting my ideas about how things should be. That's me doing something which is an awful lot braver, actually pausing to see how things actually are. And that isn't purposeful. So you can see that purposeful striving always takes us away from being able to see the truth, and therefore it always takes us away from the truth. Purposeful striving is blindness. And that blindness is rewarding to us, because we don't have to see anything. We can just believe that what we're striving to achieve is the thing, instead of just being a pure fantasy, a pure phantom, a projection that will always dissolve into absurdity if we examine it. So this is the absurdity of purposeful action in a nutshell, really. Our purpose isn't really what we say it is. Our goal isn't really what we say it is. Our goal is to put ourselves to sleep. If we really wanted to be serious about things and not duplicitous about things, we'd stop. That's the thing to do if we really want to know what's going on, not purposeful striving. Purposeful striving always comes from the self-concept. So the self-construct is striving. And all of our attention is caught up in that. So what we're striving for becomes unreasonably or ridiculously important or good, which is to say we load everything onto it so that our goal becomes all important, all significant. It's like a gambler waiting for the big payout. But the goal isn't that at all. We've allowed our striving, our desiring, our yearning to facilitate a state of unconsciousness where we no longer need to know who we are and what it is we're striving for, and what the purpose of our striving is. Therefore, the game seems meaningful to us. But if we were to stop, do the courageous thing and stop and see what our situation is, then this would reveal our striving to be mere escapism, which it always is within the field of mental health. If I'm striving, I'm trying to escape. And that's a rule of thumb. We just need to notice that strivingfulness in us and realize, here's me trying to escape. Because that's what striving is. It's trying to get out of what's happening right now into some imagined, preferable, alternative situation, some future situation which is nicer, more comforting. As Krishnamurti says, all we're doing in this case, we're looking for comfort. And looking for comfort is looking for unconsciousness, because the consciousness is where the discomfort is. It's our consciousness that is facilitating us in being able to feel that discomfort, that pain. It's our awareness. We're being aware of stuff, which on one hand doesn't sound great, but it's real. We're orientated towards reality in that case. Whereas if I'm striving to obtain something, I'm orientated towards unreality. I'm orientated towards the pleasure of forgetting about reality, escaping from reality. So what our superficial culture says is that within the context or remit of mental health, striving is the thing. Striving. We're given a method or we're given things to do, and along with this, we're expected to strive, like good little strivers. But striving, as I keep on saying, is completely antithetical to mental health. It's just a gateway to unconsciousness. Mental health is being whole. It's existing within the situation that we're actually in as a whole, the whole of us, not fleeing from that. And our wholeness is always present in the present moment. What we're striving to is just some mind-created delusion based on the self-construct, which is filtered through the lens of the self-construct. So anything that's filtered through the lens of the self-construct only means two things, really. It either means an advantage for the self-construct, which equals feeling good, we like that, or it spells disadvantage for the self-construct, which equals feeling bad, which equals dysphoria. So in this very, very simplistic scheme of things, all we have to do is keep striving for what is the advantage and fighting to avoid what is the disadvantage. And this keeps us 100% busy. This is the game. This is what keeps us busy all the time. Striving for advantage, fleeing disadvantage. Keeps us busy, and it feels good because we always have this chance that we can improve or obtain the advantage. And the reason this is like geared to cause us to be totally unconscious is because it causes us to forget that essential thing, that the self-construct on whose behalf I'm striving to obtain the advantage is an unreal thing, a fiction of the thinking mind, a convention and nothing more. Just as Alan Watts says that the lap which we have when we sit down is a convention. We can talk about the lap and make out it's a real thing, but then the moment we get up to walk out the door, it's gone. And it was never there in the first place either. And it's the same thing for the self-construct. So when we start purposefully striving, that is always done on the basis, on behalf of the self-construct, and having our attention focused on the goals or the fear of what might happen if we don't obtain the goal distracts us very, very neatly from seeing that there isn't a self-construct in the first place. So that's what the game is all about. It's called the me game, thinking that it's all about me when that me doesn't actually exist. And if we wanted to know what actually does exist, well, for the first thing, we'd have to stop investing our attention in the striving, the looking for the goal, or the running away from the bad thing, running away from the catastrophe. And once we do that, then we'd have our attention back again, and we would see that there isn't a self-concept there. We would see what there is there, which is pain or fear and any other number of difficult emotions. But that pain always relates us back to the truth of our situation. It links us up to our to a bigger picture, a more real picture of what's going on. So the pain is our linkage to reality. So if I'm sitting there and I stop striving, I have something else instead, is what I'm trying to say in a kind of roundabout way. I have something instead of the hope of being able to escape or obtain this supposedly marvelous goal. I have something else. I have awareness of what actually is. And once I have awareness of what actually is, all my so-called insurmountable problems and difficulties get relativized, they get dissolved to a certain extent. And the reason they get dissolved or relativized is because I'm no longer looking at them from the point of view of the self-construct. And all of these troubles, they belong to the self-construct. They are a projection of the self-construct. They are the self-construct. The self-construct is its troubles. These troubles are a projection of it. They only make sense to it. They can't make sense to any other point of view. They don't make sense to any other point of view. The self-construct needs its troubles. So to see through the self-construct is also to see through these troubles. And Wei Wu Wei talks about this in terms of pseudo-suffering. The self-construct suffers. We can't deny that. We can see it happening all the time, all around us. But Wei Wu Wei says, well, this is pseudo-suffering. It's pseudo-suffering we can buy into if we want to, but it is pseudo-suffering because it's not suffering that comes out of our true situation. It's suffering that comes out of us believing that we are the self-construct. So as long as we insist on looking at things this way, yes, the suffering belongs to us. And it is, of course, a measure of how very, very badly we want to identify with the self-construct, that we are willing to put up with all the pain and suffering that comes with it. Of course we'll complain to high heaven. But all the same, we'd rather have the suffering and complain about it than see through the self-construct. So that's the trap we're in. That's the monkey trap that we're in. We can't let go of this damn self-construct. If we could, we'd be free. Because all of the suffering belongs to that self-construct. That suffering, that pain does not hit us in the same way if we are not the self-construct. It's not to say that the pain isn't there, but it is something else. It's something else entirely. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's pain. It can be felt as pain. But I'm not using that pain, or rather my reactions to that pain, my fighting against it or my trying to flee it, to covertly reify the self-construct. I allow the self-construct to feel more real as a result of its problems. On the contrary, I'm looking at the problems and I'm looking at my situation without trying to escape the pain or without trying to flee, without getting involved in all of that. And that allows me to see through the self-construct, and so I'm no longer playing that game. And so the things that happen in the game, they no longer control me so much. It's the same as saying, if I know I'm in a dream, then the things that control me in that dream no longer have the same power of me, because I know it's a dream. So really what we're talking about is waking up, what is traditionally called waking up. Waking up just means not identifying with this self-construct anymore. So there's two advantages, just to wrap this up, there's two advantages of not identifying with the self-construct and playing the game, the reacting game, the striving game, the chasing after illusions game. One benefit is that the pain no longer makes the illusion more real. It no longer reifies the self. It no longer causes me to believe in this drama of me and my problems quite so much. Which means that I've got a bit of perspective and I can actually have a bit of ironic awareness of what's going on to me. There's no way to have ironic awareness when we're identified to the two-dimensional self-construct. Everything is serious and dogmatic then. As soon as we disidentify, then there is that humour, there is that irony. Because the literal level of truth isn't a literal level of truth after all, because we've got perspective, we've got another level of truth. So that's one advantage. The other advantage is, as soon as I stop identifying with that idea of who I think I am, it's as if I gain access to all the strength and insight and wisdom that I was previously denying myself. Because just as long as we're identified with the self-concept or the I-concept, there is no resilience, there is no inner strength, there is no wisdom, there is no nothing, just dodging, which is the superpower of the self-concept. So all you can do is dodge. This dodging gets awfully wearisome, and it's only a postponing of the inevitable anyway.